That's a bit too bright.
Okay, and 1, 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Cosplay Podcast, episode number 2. And we got a good cracker of the show. I'm your host, Danny Huang, and my emergency co-host is Mr. Jake Broster. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Yourself, man?
I'm doing fine. This week, you can actually see my face, because previously on all the other shows, I could not be bothered to actually get my 1K light set up. But because last week, we had those photographers on, the Kev Pack, he actually, do you know what he did? He got every light in the house, literally all the little desk lamps, so that he could be illuminated. And I thought, you know what, since he made a big effort like getting 6 or so lamps in front of him, I really should just get out my 1K setup. So yeah, this week you can actually see my light. But anyway, sorry, we got ourselves 2 qualified guests to speak about competitive cosplay this week. And we have Mr. Benjamin Hunt. How would you like to please introduce yourself, and we'll show you your nice slide.
Yeah, I'm Benjamin, Enter Cosplay. I've been cosplaying for a very long time. I'm not even going to say, but I've been doing competitive cosplay for probably about 4 or 5 years now. Just that was the first time that I started making my own stuff, learning how to sew, etc. And now one of the reasons I cosplay are very, very different from when I first got in, and I was just a bit of a fan and just like dressing up and things. But since then, I've been in ECG twice. I've been in Cosplay World Masters. I've been in Euro Cosplay. I've guested and judged around Europe. So I guess the competitive cosplay side is really my scene these days.
Those are some very, 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 very apt qualifications. Yeah, we definitely got the right guest. And next, below you, we have Cosplex. Otherwise, we're known as Lex. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Lex. Pretty much everyone knows me as Lex, but online I go as Cosplex. I think I've been cosplaying for 11 years, roughly.
Ooh. But
competitively, properly competitively, I'd say probably the same as Ben, 5 or 6 years, something like that, yeah. Done lots of numerous competitions at small events, and then the bigger ones have been representing the UK at WCS and ECG.
Excellent. Yeah, why particularly 4 or 5 years? Was there like a turning point? I mean, yeah, we're jumping the gun a bit and stuff like that. Or was it just the particular time you two just got into it?
I think... Sorry, you're Ben?
Oh, Ben, yeah, go ahead.
5 or 6 years ago was when the big competitions actually started. So the UK became able to enter the WCS, ECG was created a few years later, and Euro Cosplay again was created around the same time. So I think that was just the time when European competition really started to kick off, was that 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I'd say exactly the same thing. I mean, the UK is a little bit behind in cosplay, is probably the way to say it without being mean. Europe's been cosplaying and competing for a really long time. So when I'm elsewhere in Europe and Paris, for example, they've been really, really involved in competitive cosplay internationally, and even kind of within France, they're really, really competitive. Whereas with England and in the UK generally, we're not as competitive. We like to just have fun, and the competition side was less serious. So I know that England had wanted to be in some of the big competitions like World Cosplay Summit in the past, and actually we got turned down because they said, we don't think you're competitive enough. So it was about
competitive enough. Okay.
So it was only about that time that suddenly we were able to. Well, I think because we started hosting Euro Cosplay first, and then we managed to get ECG after that, and then. Because we were already involved in those, finally, World Cosplay Summit kind of let England and the UK get involved. So yeah, it just expanded, and that sudden like boom of interest in competitive cosplay meant that we all kind of jumped on the bandwagon, as it is.
Okay, wow. Well, we really jumped the gun. That should have. Well, we just skipped past one of our main staples, but again, we'll definitely get back to that in a minute. But yes, the first staple of our podcast is we like to talk about events, and obviously, me and Jake, we've already, the last show covered our event, but I believe. Both of you were in Belgium like a couple of months ago, so what was that about?
I think it was just Ben.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was there judging the competitions for Belgium, representing in Brussels. So they had the ECG, Euro Cosplay, WCS qualifiers, and it was quite different to here actually. I think I was asked to judge because obviously Lex, I, and Laura Sindel won ECG last year, and so when you win a big event, they want you to then get involved and judge other ones. So I went over to Brussels for the weekend, and they had not a convention. It was actually a film festival.
Interesting.
And they don't have that many conventions there, and they're not very big, and they don't have stages.
Oh,
so the only
okay.
place that they could run cosplay competitions and qualifiers was this film festival. So they had an amphitheatre, and cosplayers literally
nice.
just came exclusively to compete. So they came to the film festival, got into their costumes just to go on stage, just to compete. Got judged, winners were announced, and then they all got out of costumes and went home. So it's a really, really different type of reason why they're cosplaying, and a different type of competition and style. But it was really nice. I mean, Brussels is quite close. It was only a couple of hours on the Eurostar, so I just went over there, got to enjoy some nice food there, got to meet lots of people, and obviously choose some great cosplayers.
Yo, Ben, I'm gonna ask. When you were in Belgium, did you get waffles?
I got so many waffles. Literally, the first thing after I arrived, I was so hungry, and they were like, "Do you want to get some proper food?" And I looked around me. We were in this alleyway, and there were about a dozen different waffle shops, and I was like, "No, I think I'm okay. I'm just going to get waffles." And the first thing I did was get this one waffle that was bigger than my head, we'll say, covered in chocolate, covered in strawberries, and I just kind of devoured the whole thing. I was like, I think I need to try some other waffles now, and I just came back as well. I came back with bags and bags of waffles. Definitely, that was. I'll say the high point was the cosplay. No, the high point was probably the waffles.
No, for real, because I was wondering, because waffle, because. Well, that's the birthplace of the so-called Belgian waffle. Are they significantly better than the sort of rubbish you get in the West End that are overpriced?
Oh, they're just. They have two types of waffle. Here we go. We're gonna go into waffles here. There's two types of waffles. There's
encouraged.
Sugar waffles, which are the kinds that you see at breakfast, which are the kind of thick round ones, and they've got little chunks of sugar in them, and they're really nice and really sweet. And then they have big square ones or rectangle ones, and they have slightly less sugar in, but they have lots of air in, so they're quite fluffy and light when you bite into them. And everywhere that you go that does waffles just lets you choose whether you want sugar waffles or whether you want the big fluffy waffles. And they're fantastic. I mean, even the ones that you bought in packets in shops and supermarkets were way better than things you got here. But obviously, they make them by the millions. So.
Well, like I said, if it's the home of waffles, I would no doubt expect them to be higher quality than the fabulous Baking Boy ones you get in Morrison's. Anyway, now moving on. Yeah, Lex, you been to any good events recently besides perhaps LSCC, which, is definitely in my top 3 best events of the UK?
What have I done recently apart from that? Not a huge amount. I live quite far away. I'm up in the depths of Scotland in Aberdeen.
Oh,
so me traveling anywhere is pretty expensive, so I tend to do very few events, especially, so I'm not as lucky as like Laura and Ben who live in London, can just hop on the tube and go to any event they want and then go back home at night, leaving their free bed.
Do you have any cons in Scotland?
Yeah. Huh?
Do you have any cons in Scotland?
There's one coming up at the end of May. The first one, I believe, ever in Aberdeen is the Granite City Comic Con. It's actually down the road, and it's in a climbing centre of all places. So
I guess that's why it's called Granite City. That sounds like a Pokemon gym, though.
Yep, well, it is the Granite City. It's always been the Granite City. So yeah.
Aberdeen. Where does that stand on the classic rivalry between Glasgow and Edinburgh? Because I used to do another podcast about fighting games, and there was just some funny jokes about the two.
I'm not really sure. I think it's more Scotland v England than all the little Scottish cities fighting against each other. So no, I've not noticed anything.
Okay.
Living here.
Okay. Because there was this that everybody in Glasgow, they were like real street, they were the real toughies, and everybody that was in Edinburgh were like tops and proper poshies and all that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think Glasgow's a renowned hotbed of crime.
For sure.
Whoa! Careful what you say about Glasgow.
but Lex is obviously very well to do, and she only goes to the nice places, so she just wouldn't know.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got that coming up, and of course, I always make an appearance at Expo, but most of the time I'm helping out, so you'll never see me.
Okay. All right, that's events nicely covered. So Belgium, it was a film festival, so it's not the traditional. Okay, it wasn't the traditional sort of event where you'd see cosplayers roaming around. It would just be for the performance, and that was it. So you didn't have.
Yeah, it was quite nice, and to be honest, I mean, I haven't done any cons since last year apart from LSCC, and I was so exhausted by that it was nice that my first kind of event of the year wasn't a really exhausting convention. I was cosplaying Tintin because it was Belgium, and I thought it would be great. So I went to the Tintin store, and that was really fantastic. But it was really, really relaxed cosplay and quite laid back event. So I suppose the first big con of the year is going to be MCM. And that's quite manic. So it's nice to have a very slow kind of break into that.
Okay. Oh yeah, Tintin. Yeah, I absolutely, I love that series. I don't love the racial stereotypes, but I definitely do love that series. It was I don't know, what's that about European comic artists that was so good? Because you got Tintin, you got Asterix. Yeah, I definitely want to see more Asterix cosplayers. I want to see. Yeah, I definitely want to see an Obelix with a massive Meniere.
Well, it was interesting when I was in Brussels. They have it's probably about 15, 20 comic stores there, and it's obviously it is the centre of European comics. And I knew obviously you hear about Tintin and things, but I didn't understand and realise quite to what extent they really, really love comics, and not just their own comics, but comics worldwide. So there were just roads full of one comic store after another, and you could go in there and you could get manga, you could get Marvel comics. There were figurine stores just packed with every different type of anime and manga figure, and it was really it was quite geeky really, and I really loved it. Like I didn't expect it. Like it was just way geekier than London, and obviously they're really, really into that aspect. But I suppose when they've had generations and generations of comic artists, they've really accepted it as part of that culture and accepted comics and things generally.
Funny you should mention that, because we are definitely geeky, but you could definitely say most of the independent comic stores they've just shut up. It's like they've just completely shut up, because before, when I used to go comic shopping a lot, in London, you'd have you'd have Orbital Comics, you have Comic Showcase, you had a third option, but now they just all sort of disappeared, and it's like, nope, you go to Forbidden Planet, and I don't know, the problem I got with Forbidden Planet is it's like the vast majority of their stuff is all the sort of tat upstairs, and the actual comic part is like shoved downstairs into a basement. And I kind of think, yeah, it's kind of telling, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Orbital's still doing okay, but I think, as you said, a lot of the smaller independent stores are having a lot of issues, which is surprising because not just cosplay, but comics is really, really big now. I think part of the fact that kind of like all the geek interests are quite popular now has helped cosplay a lot, but like all the Marvel films and all of the other things like that, all of geek culture is a little bit more accepted, and you think that would mean that people would go to comic stores and people would buy it more, and therefore that this would take off. But actually, I think because it's become more popular, you can buy it online cheap and really get hold of everything really easily. Whereas perhaps in the past, because it wasn't so popular, it was harder to get things, it was harder to find out about things. You didn't have forums full of tens of thousands of people talking about it. So people went to comic stores not just to buy comics, but to meet people and to make friends and to have a community. And now that's not necessary anymore. All that you have left is the big chain stores, because people literally only go there to buy comics. They don't go there to share anything. That's when they go to the conventions now. They go to the big conventions that are all over the world. Like every month there's at least one, if not two, in England. So
I would go as far as to say, I think particularly in July, I think there's a con literally every single week, or even overlapping.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, right, that's events out of the way. We can now talk about the main meat of the subject, competitive cosplay. And blimey, we got a lot to go through. And Jake, because you've been so damn quiet, and we don't like that, why do competitive competitions, to go through an expensive and very long process for little to no monetary gain? So, go ahead, Jake. Why?
Well, I think it's the whole process of it. I mean, it's like up to like 2 to 3 minutes on stage, but the whole lead up to it, the rehearsals, the actual creation and deciding. I mean, if I take LSCC, like me and Dave doing our Team Arkham bit, that started around, I mean, like September of last year. We were both at EGX, and we were just like, right, should we do a group thing? I'm just like, right, what are we gonna do? Well, we could do a comedy thing. Okay, what are we gonna do?
Of course.
Let's sing. Dave, I don't think I can sing. and it's the whole process. So is it?
Oh, what? Really? You can't sing? I thought you did.
Oh, no.
I thought you did all right, actually. Okay, that's impressive.
Well, I've never had any training or anything, so it's just like, oh, okay, I can do the voices and stuff and that. But the gain itself, I mean, like the reward in itself is being able to go up on the stage, and I know before we were just talking about how like the UK was not really let in because it wasn't that competitive.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, we'll get down to more depth. Yes.
Yeah, and there's things about like, yes, we work to make the costumes as the best we can, but let's have a bit of fun with it as well. And so with me, yeah, there's lots to gain from it because like it's the whole thing really. It's definitely worth it.
All right. No, that is a good.
No, it's really hard to pin it down. I think, it's how do you justify to someone that actually? I mean, different people invest different amounts, and there's you don't necessarily have to invest a fortune and 6 months of your life, but obviously, the more that you invest and the more that you give to something, the more likely you are to succeed. And it is hard to justify to someone, oh, so why are you spending 5 months of your life and a small personal fortune to go stand up on stage in costume for a few minutes? And why is that more worthwhile than just getting some pictures or hanging out with your friends? What sets that apart? And I think for me, there's lots of different things that tie together. The first is that, well, I really, really like making things, and I really like pushing myself to make better things every time. So I'm not happy just making one costume and then being like, okay, I'm done, I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm like, well, I want to make something better, I want to make something cooler. And if you are doing that, then how do you get recognized for that? Like, at what point do you feel satisfied apart from your own feeling of like, oh, I've achieved something? And it's nice when friends recognize you, and it's nice when, for the people who, let's say, post on Tumblr or Twitter or any of the social media, and they get like explosive likes and explosive popularity, and that's really cool, and that's a great recognition. But there are other ways of getting recognition and other ways of achieving things, and I think that competitive cosplay is one of them. Like, you're investing a lot of time and effort into making a costume, making it accurately, and then you're going into a situation where you have really experienced judges from all over the world who really know a lot about costume making, looking at that and appreciating every little detail that you've gone to, and kind of that sentiment of recognition of then, and then obviously you've got the performance side. It's something that you don't get in any other side of cosplay. You get to go up and do a show, and it's odd, like cosplay in itself means costume play, but actually a lot of it is just the costume now. There's very little play involved, whereas like in America when it started, there was a lot more play, there was a lot more masquerades, there was a lot more skits, there was a lot more getting on stage, getting involved, having fun, and that's kind of been lost now. It is mostly just a costume, and a lot of the time when I talk about cosplay, I actually just call it costuming, because that is the majority of what it is. And so it's nice to have that playback. It's nice to do something, to have a bit of that character, to walk around. If I'm Loki, I don't just get to stand there and look like Loki. I get to kind of be Loki a little bit, and that's a lot of fun. And then on top of that, you've got the people you meet. I mean, I was in ECG the first year, and I literally, it was the first time I'd ever made a costume, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to sew. I didn't know how to really make props. I just kind of read it on the internet and was doing it for the first time and just hoping it went together and didn't fall apart. And the big thing for me was it was my first experience of a convention outside of England. It was the first time meeting cosplayers who cosplayed for reasons that were different. They had a different culture growing up. They had different type of conventions. They had a different atmosphere. And so the reasons that they cosplayed and what they got out of it was really, really different. And meeting people from all over Europe and not only making great friends who have fantastic drive and motivation, but then coming away from it and talking to them all the time and learning from them. And, you know, I have a Facebook feed full of like really, really skilled people. And every time I look there, there's someone incredibly skilled doing some really, really cool stuff. And I can just drop them a message and be like, oh, wow, that's really, really cool. How did you do that? Yeah. And to be able to hear about that process and stuff is really, really cool. And I wouldn't have any of that without competitive cosplay. I wouldn't have met any of those people. And so I think, like I said, there's loads of different reasons, and I couldn't even pick one. This is the reason why I do competitive cosplay. But altogether, it's kind of pushed me now in a direction where I like to stay in that community, and I like to travel and get involved in this stuff. And I know just kind of getting some photos is great in its own right, and I still do that. But I think I'd get a little bit bored. I'd want to do more. I'd want to get involved more. I do get bored in between conventions and in between competitions. I finish one competition, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? I need to focus on something else.
Hardcore.
I think the great thing about competition is that it actually is a deadline. So for me, I've got such a busy life. If I'm working towards a competition, then it'll get finished.
Oh, okay, sorted. So
it's one of the main things. There's a lot of other things that Ben said as well that I agree with. Very true.
So you echo his sentiment then, so that you definitely would be a big advocate of the performance part. Because I was.
I really love making. Love making things, finishing things and creating something. I love it. The performance side of things, I had to be dragged into it, kicking and screaming. It is not my strength at all. And I get really bad stage fright every time before I'm on stage. It's
I
not
think
my
Lex
favorite thing.
Lex is the worst for stage fright. You're always kind of very, very reluctant. But you say performing isn't your forte, and actually you've had some of the most recognised performances. Like it's one of those odd things. Like we all get nervous, and it's very difficult. I mean, in the UK, you're on a stage in front of a few hundred. In Japan Expo, you're on stage in front of 10 to 15,000. And if you think about that for very long, that's quite scary. Yeah, it is a lot of people.
Yeah.
We're all geeks. I mean, we're not used to this being popular celebrities thing. So going on a stage in front of thousands of people is really terrifying and weird and awkward. And I think it's one of those. I know Lex has been pretty nervous, but
I'm a woman that has to have a plan, right? So when I'm on stage, I know exactly what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, and when I'm doing it. If something goes wrong on stage, all hell breaks loose, and that has happened to me before, right? I have like completely freaked out because something went wrong. So like, for example, my friend Laura could literally just walk up on a stage and act something and it would be perfect, and she's just kind of doing it as she goes along, but I could never do that. I just get up there and go, what am I actually going to do? And you know, just
your friend
out to a T. And it's just, that's my nature. It's just the scientist in me, I think, rather than the artist.
Okay, and well, your friend Laura is she actually human? Because again, her credentials sort of I don't even know where to begin. She worked on the Olympic opening ceremony, and you kind of think, oh whoa, and among our other list of sort of countless things. But I think you're a little hard on yourself, because your Vampire Hunter D act was pretty godlike, and I'm going to be showing that clip when we talk about WCS, and your She-Ra act last year, pretty good.
Yeah, so competitive cosplay, you definitely don't get monetary value back from what you invest.
No, for sure not.
I think, like Ben said, it's definitely the friends. So what really draws me into doing these big competitions where you go to European events and you see other contestants from other countries is the friends you make. Some of the best cosplay friends, and just the different cultures you mix with as well. Just gives you different experiences. It's the best thing about it.
I think it's not just the contestants, it's the judges as well. I think, like, as you were just saying about LSCC, when we have judges like Yaya over, she's always really, really friendly with her fans. She always meets everybody, tries to talk to everybody and get involved, but she treats contestants differently. I think she's been through it, so she knows the stresses and the investments involved. And she's really, really personable with contestants and like talks to them a lot more, has a lot of time for them, even after competitions. In the past, I've seen her kind of like keep track and follow people that she's been impressed by in competitions. And those kind of connections you wouldn't have if it wasn't for the competitions. And that chance to kind of talk to people like that, show them your costumes, kind of get their feedback. It's like see what they think. And like there's been cosplayers that I hugely admire, and to be in front of them and them to be looking at my costume and being impressed or to give me feedback on it, that's something that I wouldn't have in any other situation. And it'd be kind of awkward almost if I went to them to their table whilst they were signing a print and say, look at my costume, can you give me some feedback on what you think about it? But it's really, really nice to have when it's in a situation when actually that's what they're there to do, and they can tell you what they think, tell you what they feel, and kind of get involved in that way.
That's an interesting point. I never imagined it like that, because it's true. I've never sort of gone up to let's say Kamui or Yaya. Hey, Yaya, what do you think of my costume? Yeah, you're right. That's actually I've never even thought of that context at all. Have you ever done that, Jake?
Well, I've had it the role reversed, because at EGX last year, me and Dave were like
judges.
Judges, and like after the Saturday convention, a couple of the people in the contest actually came up to us and were like, "What do you think of our costumes?" And I'm just like, I don't. It's lovely. I like it.
Yeah, we're going to definitely get the judging bit. We're going to definitely go to the judging bit in depth a little bit later. But no, seriously, Ben, that is a good point. I never thought of it like that. Because yeah, for sure. Oh, sorry. Oh, actually, now is a good bit to hold up. We start again, and yes, we now move into a second question. But oddly enough, we had some nice We've had some nice viewer questions. Actually, no, Lex. Yeah, you were. Yeah, I believe the very, very first UK representative for WCS. Was there a lot of pressure to sort of win, even though it does not seem that competitive? Because yeah,
I wouldn't say there was pressure to win. WCS is can be quite an unpredictable competition. So all the contestants go out to Japan with this notion of having more of an experience than trying to win, which is a really, really great way to go about it, because once you're out there, everyone has a great time. So no, I wouldn't say there was pressure. It was more of we kind of went into it blind. That was the scary thing, because no one from the UK had ever been before. We didn't really know anyone from any other countries who had been before, because the scene was young then, and we hadn't had that chance to meet other people from other countries who were into competitive cosplay. So yeah, me and Laura went into it pretty blind, and it was a very eye-widening experience. It was good fun. Exhausting. I will mention that. Very exhausting. 10 days of
10 days.
Parading, press. They don't give you long to change into costume. Half an hour a lot of the time.
Half an hour?
That
Wow.
included makeup. And lots of travelling around. We went to Japan one day to meet the Minister of Foreign Affairs. That was a very surreal experience. No, I wouldn't say there was a lot of pressure. Obviously, there was a reasonable amount of pressure because you wanted to do well because you were representing your country, but no, we didn't go out there to win it. We went out there to see what was going to happen.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, for the benefit of the viewers, unfortunately not my guest, I'm just showing the rather rare videos of WCS from that time. Your Vampire Hunter D act, and you've just killed Laura.
Yeah, we had an act where she was possessed, and she started to attack me, and eventually I slapped her around the face and depossessed her by pulling the evil out of her. That's the
I think Laura gets slapped around the face in every one of the performances that she does.
Yeah, it's good fun.
I think what you're saying, WCS has got quite a history as a competition, and it's
When we were out there, it was its 10th anniversary. So that was
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think there's some countries like Brazil, predominantly Italy. They've been involved right since the start. And cosplay there is well established, and it's not just that they know more about cosplay, it's about they know more about the competition, and they know how to go into it. And if they want to go into to win, they know the route to do that. And I won't go into it too much now because I know it's going to come up, but there are obviously different ways of succeeding in different competitions.
Yeah.
And if you know, okay, I've seen 10 years of this, I've been involved before, I know have friends who've been involved, this is how you go at it, this is how you succeed at it, this is what they want from you, and this is how you win, then you make very different costumes, you have very different performances. And obviously we went there blind. I mean, Lex and Laura and representing the UK, like talking to you guys and hearing like about your experiences, it's one of those like your ideas in cosplay were really, really cool and really, really interesting. And yeah, I think you obviously also knew that that you were going, because you were going into it blind, though, you're not tailoring yourself to that. And that's the difficulty, is the fact that it's not necessarily about not doing well enough or not being as good as other people. It's about not having the costumes or the performance style that the judges in that competition, that fits them best.
I mean, it's like simple things like one of the things we learned from our performance was that Japanese performances are not very wordy, right? And when you translated our performance, it was a wall of words. Basically, the person who did our Japanese for us, they literally did not stop talking our entire skit. So, when we came to advise the next contestants to WCS, we were like, don't put that many words in it. You want some words, but not that many. You want very simple Japanese and very easy to understand concepts. And if you look at the performances that went ahead from the UK, you could see the changes in them and how, they learned from our experience, and then each team teaches the next team going forward, and that's how we pass our experience down. And maybe 10 years down the line, we'll get to a place where we might even win.
Interesting, not very wordy. I mean, actually, how do you think about it? Because I was watching a couple of hours of WCF, which was remarkably depressing. I don't know, it's because I used to be really, really into anime. It's just like I've just seen was it a anime version of Cesare Borgia stabbed Lucrezia. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of depressing.
There's a lot of death in cosplay.
Yes, there was a lot. Yes.
There's only so many things you can do. I mean, it's great if somebody comes along with something original, and that's really, really going to stand out. But actually, for the most part, there's only so much you can do in like a minute and a half that's going to be really impressive and going to really stand out. And death, costume changes, and some kind of cool trick, pulling something from nothing, dancing, fighting, spinning.
Being hoisted up into the air, which kind of shocked me, because I'm kind of thinking you could only ever do that at WCS. You would probably not be able to do it at any other event.
I've seen people hoisted up in the air at ECG.
Yeah.
They can?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You have to make some elaborate contraption to do it.
Yeah, that's it. You need
to help you.
You need a stage that's big enough to kind of accommodate what you're doing. And I think ECG and WCS are the only ones that quite manage that have not just a stage that's big enough to accommodate whatever cool props you brought, but also the audience to make it worthwhile. And I mean, ECG is a little bit easier for us in the UK because it's closer. So getting huge, elaborate props from here to France is a lot easier than elaborate than getting them from here to Tokyo. But even for you, Lex, I think it's probably a little bit easier to get things from Scotland to Paris.
I still have to shove things on a plane.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you were saying was it offline the other day that you actually have to transport your props and free costumes to Japan, and I was thinking, I really hope they paid for your excess luggage fee.
Oh no.
No.
No. I think we paid for one extra bag between us, me and Laura, and half of that extra bag was our set.
Wow.
Yeah, no, we became we've all become very adept at making sets that pack down very small. Because it's just not worth the hassle of transporting them. You know, you want a set that doesn't look like it's going to fall apart on stage. I've seen a fair few of those. Like people basically.
Yes, Jake, that did happen to you. Yeah.
Oh no, it's just like a rectangle won't stand up its own. You have to make a box. You know, triangles. It's just a little bit of thought goes a long way. And then, you know, I've always had to make things that pack down to a suitcase, and I'm pretty sure a fair few people are sick of seeing the greenhouse. I always use a greenhouse. It's these greenhouses you get off Amazon, and they're pop-up greenhouses, and it's poles and connectors. And what I do is I make the greenhouse nearly every competition, and I stick a different thing on top of it. And they're like, "Oh my god, it's the greenhouse again!" I'm like, "But it fits in my suitcase."
I think this is it, though. I mean, finding stuff that fits on stage and you can transport easily is quite difficult. And the first time I was at ECG, there were people who, it was the first year of ECG, but obviously some of the other countries had been in WCS before, they'd had their own competitions before, they knew what they were doing. So I turned up with my one suitcase and my small costume, and then there were people who came with a van with crates, like 5 meter by 5 meter crates that they were unloading with like 5 meter wingspan kind of wings, and like huge swords that were like 3.5 meters long, and like they'd just driven them in from Italy. And obviously in that situation they're just kind of used to do massive things, but actually that didn't mean that they succeeded any more than other people who had much simpler packed down ideas. And when you look at people like Kamui, like you mentioned earlier, she makes her costumes so that she can fit everything inside a suitcase. She looks at a costume and goes, okay, how can I make this smaller? How can I make this bit fit inside of that bit? And sometimes thinking about things technically like that means that you understand how it's not just how it's going to pack down, but how it's going to come back up and be stable. Whereas if it's something that you can just kind of drive down on the day and put on the stage, you tend to think less about that. You tend to just be like, I've got something that'll just do. And unfortunately, it's not just the case of it's not you perfectly setting everything up on stage and making sure it's balanced and making sure it's going to stay where you want it to. It's going to be you being really, really stressed whilst two stagehands take something on stage, put it vaguely where you want it, and just hope that it all stays there okay. And if you've got something that's a bit more reliable and is definitely going to be sturdy, it's a lot easier. Like
in WCS, the stage was outside, and it was a particularly windy night when we were performing.
Oh, interesting.
So some of the people who had more fragile stage props, you could definitely tell because they were pretty wobbly. And we all had to start buying water bags to weigh things down as well. So inside stages definitely have an advantage.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, funny you mentioned, Ben, about the 5 meter by 5 meter crate. I just actually, when I was watching the WCS, they actually have really strict rules about the prop sizes. Because I just noticed that I was watching, I think, the Guilty Gear Act. I was thinking, wait a minute, that sword's a bit small. And then I read that their props actually have to apply to con-safe rules, which is kind of interesting.
I think different, especially in WCS, but every competition has its own rules and size of your costume, size of your stage props, size of your weapons, what they're made from, all fit within those rules. Not just the rules of that competition, but the rule of the overall convention. So ECG rules have to fit within Japan Expo rules, Euro Cosplay rules have to fit within MCM rules. You do get a little bit of liberty when you're on stage. If you talk to the organisers in advance and say, this is what I want to do, they don't make those rules to make people's lives difficult. They make them to try and keep everything safe. And so if you can kind of justify that actually what you're doing is a little bit kind of on the grey area of the rules, but
but wouldn't it be, let's say, Guts from Berserk, who has I think one of the most largest swords in just manga.
Yeah. And that's it. It's one of those. His sword is probably on the borderline of what you're supposed to have in terms of size of a sword, but if you made it from, let's say, foam and latex, and it's quite squidgy and it's quite soft, the fact that it's big isn't really going to make that much of an impact. It could be small and it would be no more or less dangerous. And I think that they have to say something. They have to put some guidelines in. But
I
these
say
events,
that though. WCS are very strict because I made my set to the exact dimensions
Exact. Okay.
limit, and they actually looked at it and were like, I think that's too big, and they measured it.
Oh, bloody
They
hell.
actually measured it. So
but I think although with WCS they can be strict on some things, I know that they're quite hazy with other things. So
yeah, true.
I think it's one of those situations. Different things vary, and you just have to try your best. You come up with the great ideas. You talk to the organisers. You talk to the event. See whether it's going to work. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't, you go back. You try something different. Sometimes afterwards, other contestants or people will complain and be like, "Oh, if I'd known I could have done that, then I would have done that myself." And it's like, well, next time. It's quite an open community. It's quite, and it is a community. Competitions aren't just a you and them. It isn't just this kind of unknown organisation that you can't talk or interact with, and you're a contestant like, let's say, the Eurovision. You can literally, you can actually like get involved. You can talk to them a little bit more, and sometimes it takes them time to come back to you and think about things and try and work with things. But they understand that it's cosplay, it's a hobby, it's people aren't professionals. We're all just kind of people doing this as something on the side, as something fun, and doing it because we're passionate about it.
I mean, you are right. I mean, with the ECG performance, when I first mentioned to Ben, the organizer, that I wanted to bring a swing, he was like, "You're bringing a swing?" Yeah, like I wanted a trapeze because it's Moulin Rouge, right? And she's like, "How on earth are you going to get a swing on the stage?" I'm like, "Don't worry, it'll be a small swing." And I went out and I researched. I sent him the dimensions and the weight. And he was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds like it's doable. You can do that." So it is. It is about talking to the organisers sometimes about what you want and seeing where you can make a compromise.
A swing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to look this up because I don't think I've ever seen that in the history of cosplay.
Oh, you should watch the ECG videos. Lex is fantastic. She's wonderfully fabulous in her sparkly outfit. She has a windmill, a lit up windmill.
That's my best
swing.
Prop. Yeah.
And a lot of ass, and those are.
I was very proud of that windmill. That windmill was my greatest stage creation. Definitely.
Oh, sweet. Anyway, wow, this is too jam packed. We might have to actually skip a question, but obviously, but since my mate Dave asked, and it's pretty much the same question I was going to ask anyway. So, what are the favourite contestants the guests have done, and why? Jake, because you're being quiet again. I assume it's LSCC, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
favoritism, nepotism, yes.
Well, I love being Batmite on stage just because that was my first time ever doing anything like professional wise. And
really, your first time? Oh.
Yeah, that was my first professional kind of like competition piece with Batmite, and so I just love doing the whole character and that, and I really want to get into more puppetry stuff. So I do want to do more with characters like Batmite, and I don't know. I mean, like that one was my favorite one just because it was just like my first one. It was just like, oh my god, it was like just coming on with a puppet, and then everyone's got like you had the Castle Grayskull, and everyone had like so many different props and everything. I was just like, oh wow, this is amazing.
Oh, that was your first time. Oh, you could have fooled me. You were really well into it. I was thinking, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, so Ben, again, yep, you can even say your own events that you support. So what would your favourite contest be then? You've been around the world.
No, I'm not going to say LSCC because that's kind of cheeky. And actually, what I will say about LSCC from an organiser perspective is I find it really, really hard to gauge how well it went, whether it was good, whether people enjoyed it, because I'm so detached from it. I'm so seeing it from the other perspective, worrying about whether it went okay, worrying about whether everyone had a good time, whether everyone had fun, whether this went wrong or that went wrong. And seeing it from that side, that even though I've been in the contestant's position, when I'm seeing things from the organizer perspective, it's impossible. I come away from that and I say to people, how did that go? And they said, well, you were there. I was like, yeah, but I can't see from your side when I'm on this side. I need you all to tell me how you think about it. Was it good? And lots of people said it was great, and I'm really, really happy, although I still think, oh, they're only saying that because they like me. Yeah, that's one of those things that when you're organising something, you really can't gauge. And you have involvement, but it's a different kind of involvement. And I think from a contestant side, 100% ECG was the best experience for me. It's exhausting. I know it might not be quite as exhausting as WCS, but it is still exhausting. I mean, you do 5 days, and there's a lot of different kind of events and things, and it's hot. Paris in summer is really, really hot.
Not as hot as Japan.
Yeah. But you do meet a lot of people, and it's that meeting people, it's the getting involved, it's the parties, it's the being on the huge stage with the massive audience and all the fantastic lighting and everything like that, and experience, and obviously it kind of helps that we won last time. Just throw that in there.
Okay.
You always enjoy something more when you're winning. No, it was good anyway. I mean, even when I was there the first time, the reason why I went back the second time was because even though I didn't do well the first time, I enjoyed it so much that I was like, wow, I really want to go back and do that again. And I don't have that feeling from every event that I've been in. And I think if you do something and it's exhausting and it's hot and it's tiring, and actually you want to go back again, then that's probably a sign that it's good.
Okay, sweet. Just for the benefit of because there's going to be a couple of first-time listeners. Explain Euro cosplay, because I'm only vaguely familiar, because I used to go to a lot of anime cons, and they always used to run the qualifiers there, way back in like, what was it, 2000 and, was it 2005? Yeah, that was really way back. It was like 2005, 6, something like that.
Okay, so we've got, of the international competitions, we have Euro Cosplay, which has been running for the longest in England. The finals it's all run by MCM in London, and the finals are at the October MCM show. Oh, I see. And it's Europe only. I think there's 26 countries involved.
There's something like 40 contestants. There are a lot. It's probably the biggest solo competition.
Yeah, it's just solos. They choose either one or two contestant by country. I think next year they're going to just go down to one per country because it's just getting too big and there's too many countries involved. But yeah, it's focused on 80% is on costume. Performance is a much smaller margin, and it is lots of people from all over Europe and a lot of countries who aren't involved in any other competitions. A lot of small countries where, for them, Euro Cosplay is the only event that they have that allows them to cosplay somewhere else. So it's quite a cool and interesting competition because of the costume being a bigger mark. You do see some huge, crazy costumes that you just don't really see anywhere else because you think, well, you're mad for trying to A, transport that, and B, wear it for a day. But it's really that's one thing, and then after that we got ECG, European Cosplay Gathering. The finals for that are in Paris at Japan Expo, and there's for each country there's a solo entry and a group entry, and the group entry can be 2 or 3. So they choose both solo and group. And there's less countries.
Like 11, is it not?
Yeah, I think maybe 11 or 12.
Yeah, 11 countries.
I think they increase it each year. And it's... For us, it's great because it means that we get to go abroad. We don't just go to London. Because, as we said before, France has been involved in cosplay for a lot longer. It's a bit more kind of a grandiose experience. You have the huge stage and the huge audience, and everyone is kind of really, really involved. And not just that, you get to see their WCS and ECG and Euro Cosplay qualifiers whilst you're there, because they're all held at the same event across the weekend. And they're on a completely different scale to everything here. I mean, 10 times the amount of contestants, and again on the same kind of huge stage, so they're really different experience. And then we have World Cosplay Summit, which came afterwards, and I mean, Lex has kind of filled in a lot about it, but it's pairs only, And actually, what I didn't mention before was in Euro Cosplay and ECG, you can pretty much enter anything provided that it's from an official
original
source. And official source, it's out in the world, it's been published, or it's been in a film, or it's been in a comic. Provided it's somewhere, they're pretty okay. With WCS, you can only go from a Japanese anime or a Japanese game. That's it.
Yes.
There's not even Japanese films, just literally very, very limited costumes that you can go from. And even then, you're not allowed to use anything that's shown in Jump, so none of the kind of Naruto or Bleach or One Piece or anything like that.
And they got slightly funny with us because we cosplayed the Vampire Hunter D from the novel and not the anime. So, yeah. And actually, video games were only added in the last half of the, 5 years or so. It used to just be anime and manga.
So yeah, I mean, they're really much more restricted. So you have to be into anime and Japanese games if you're going to go for that one, because that's all that you can cosplay for it. But again, ECG and WCS performance is 50%, and it's obviously a huge deal. And I think the thing that I always say about performing in costumes is performance ends up being a bigger deal than the costume does, because once you all hit a certain level of quality, the difference between you and the person next to you is very minimal. You're both pretty accurate. You both put a lot of effort in. You're both high quality costumes. Maybe you've got a small problem here. Maybe they've got a small problem there. But the difference in marks is quite minimal. Whereas with performances,
that's a definite
the gap. Yeah, that's the thing, is the fact that there's no
deal breaker.
It's a deal breaker. There's no easy way of marking apart from the best performance against the worst performance, and then everything else in between. So the best performance will get top marks, the worst performance will get almost no marks, and then everything else will get the gap. So you and someone next to you's costumes could be both good, their costume could be a little bit better, but your performance could be fantastic, and that will throw you miles ahead of them in the marks. And you really do see how the performance competitions, the performance comes into it pretty heavily. And I mean, you still have to have a fantastic costume, you still have to be at that level, but you do see people with simpler costumes that are simple but really clean, and then it gives them the movement to be able to have fantastic performances.
I think I'm gone.
Huh?
Oh, I think, are we lost?
No, Jake, you're still there.
Yeah, we definitely heard you.
We're good.
But what you can even say is that even though Euro cosplay is less percentage-wise performance, it still ends up being the tiebreaker. The last fair few years of Euro cosplay has been the better performances that have ended up winning.
Okay. And unfortunately, we've lost Jake. Oh, and he's back. No worries. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, I had to go save the universe.
Yeah.
That was rather quick of you, yeah.
It's quicker than last time.
And then since then, I'm gonna branch out here.
No worries.
We had some more kind of local cons. London Super Comic Con, which I've been organising.
I heard about that one. Yes.
It's held in the UK. There's no qualifiers, but it's open internationally. So we have at least a third of our contestants are from elsewhere in the world, from Europe, and a lot of big names come over and get involved. And so it's now an international competition. And obviously the prize is to then go internationally, to go to an international convention. So it's garnered a lot of interest, and it's kind of, we have more than any of the qualifiers for any of the international competitions. So obviously a lot of people are getting involved and are interested in it. But I mean, there are others coming up. I mean, Cosplay World Masters is coming up soon. I think there's a cosplay.
Oh yes, I think I've got
qualifier.
Yeah, I think I've got a nice reel of you as a Mirage Knight, I believe, from the 5-Star Stories, which was it's a very interesting anime / manga. Actually,
Yeah, retro.
Yeah, from what I remember, the manga creator made it so hard and elaborate that he didn't want it to become an anime, but the thing is, they still went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah, well, we're going really far back now, showing my age. So 5-Star Stories is a very, very, very retro anime, and kind of paved the way for giant mechas and
Oh yeah,
kind
the
of,
motorheads. Yep, I remember
yeah,
them.
and it was kind of in the days before Gundam, and it became a huge cult.
Are you sure about that, Ben? I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
it's about the same time, and they made the models they made of the giant mechas.
The motorheads, yes.
Yeah, they encouraged that kind of that same time was we're well off topic now. That same time was the kind of growth of models, and so then you did have all the you had the Gundam figures, you had the 5-star story figures, you had the Macross figures, and that became a really big thing in itself. And whereas Macross and Gundam both grew and they had more series and more shows and loads of different variations, 5-star stories, he did it once and then he never wrote anything else. He made like a short film recently, but I think he made the one manga and the very, very short anime film of it, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. And I found it obscurely and really, really liked the designs, and ended up cosplaying it. But obviously it's so obscure, no one knew who I was, and
I would have.
Everywhere I went. Well, yeah, I think you're in the wonderful minority. But yeah, it did mean that I competed in the costume a couple of times, and none of the judges and none of the contestants had any idea who it was. So I had to make quite a universal performance. I just had to assume that no one had a clue who I was or what I was doing, and just do something that they thought was interesting.
Sweet. Yeah, that was. It was a very interesting show because they had some really, really high-end concepts, which eventually a lot of people ripped off, such as the mechas weren't actually piloted by the pilot; they had to be controlled by a Fatima, which was, from what I remember, a weird genetically engineered woman or something like that. They weren't like normal women. It was. Yeah, sorry, we're going dangerously off topic here, but again, we're geeks. Of course, we're going to talk about geeky stuff. Oh man. Oh, damn! I just realised. Lex, we didn't actually ask you, but I'm pretty sure you're going to echo Ben's response. So, what's been your favourite competitions and why?
Yeah, I definitely, as a competition, I enjoyed ECG the most, but as an experience, I'd probably go for WCS. Yeah, definitely my first trip to Japan, completely new world, insane. But the organisation and the backstage setup of ECG is fantastic. It's definitely worth going. If you have an opportunity to enter and go there, it's fantastic. It's worth it.
Oh, sweet. Actually, I missed a trick. I forgot to ask. Is there actually any monetary award for winning WCS? Because I noticed there was, instead of judges award, you had awards by the sponsors, which I kind of found amusing.
So I think the main prize is usually a flight to Japan.
Again, but you're already in Japan.
Yeah, so you'll get like a trip from whatever country you're from. You'll get a trip back, and then a lot of the sponsors have different prizes. So, there's a wig company that will give you 10 wigs, and there's the Brother Award where you get a sewing machine.
They're good. They're good sewing machines.
A few different awards. Yeah, it changes from year to year, so I've not really been keyed in what it's been recently. But there's usually an airline involved.
Yeah, I think WCS every year they say you can come back again and enjoy Japan, because you don't get much time to actually enjoy Japan whilst you're in WCS, from what I hear. Yep. But I think what I hear is that almost everybody who wins then uses their free trip to then come back and watch the following year, and kind of get involved and have that experience. Because once you win, obviously you're a bit of a celebrity over there, so they like having you back.
They're always very keen for alumni to come back and visit, and they'll help you arrange like a hotel. Obviously you have to pay for it, but they'll help you arrange things and you can come back and help the following year. I kind of took the decision that it was far too hot that time of year in Japan to go back. I actually went back in April. I was like, sorry WCS, maybe next time.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool. So in a way, it doesn't matter if you win or lose because you're just going to Japan anyway, and even if wow, that's really kind of cool, actually, because, again, I come from a really, really competitive background. We'll probably get to that later, which is what kind of put me off competitive cosplays, because, we'll definitely get to that later. And, generally it was about the mentality, well, you got to win. Why bother doing a win? Whereas, no, this sounds brilliant. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Now, a lot of these international competitions, like once you've won the qualifier, the attitude once you get to the final is very much, we're here now, we've already won, let's just have fun. And I experienced that both at WCS and at ECG.
I think even in the qualifiers, though, especially in
Whoa.
England, I think what we were saying about England not being that competitive in some ways is as a double-edged sword. I mean, on the flip side, it means that actually, for the most part, if you're backstage at a qualifier or an event here, everybody's quite friendly. They're all really nervous and they're all just trying to do their best, but you are all just geeks in cosplay, in costume, and people are really friendly. And I've made some kind of good friends just in qualifiers here, just from going to an event, from being involved, from having that experience. And I don't think there's ever been a time when I've been involved in a competition, even from the very start, where I've had a bad experience. Like, some people can be a bit more competitive, but it doesn't. They don't detract from the whole thing. For the majority, the most people are just friendly and nice and involved and want to share and want to help each other, want to carry each other's props around if they see that you're struggling and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, we're going way over time, but the thing is, I can't stop. This is good material. This is great insight. So very briefly before we hit the break, I've got to ask, how does the UK compare to the rest of the world? Because apparently, according to my mate Dave, when he goes to Dragon Con, it's like, yeah, that's just award-winning costume, award-winning costume, award-winning costumes. The concentration is apparently much greater over there.
Go on, Lex.
Interesting. I'd say that from my experience in Japan, that European costume and American costume is much higher standard to Asian, typically.
Interesting.
Yeah. They're very much more into the performance and being the character. And once you do, obviously you get some excellent costumes coming out from Asia. I just thought that the standard was slightly higher from the stuff that the Europeans and the Americans brought.
Yeah, I think I would agree from what I know as well, that even from the kind of Asian guests who come over to Europe to guest at events here, their kind of costume quality is a little bit more relaxed, and they're not as bothered about that side of it, and they'll focus more on simple stuff, and that allows them to perform, and they are really, really performance heavy. In terms of how the UK sits in Europe and America, we're better now. I think we're better than we used to be.
I like the sound of this. Yes,
there's some really, really talented people here. Some incredibly talented people. They don't all compete, is one side of it.
That's a point,
and
yes.
also, actually, the UK isn't that big, and we've not been in cosplay for that long. I mean, we've only been having conventions for less than about a decade, I guess, now. And really, in terms of conventions that people cosplay at, as we recognise cosplay, whereas in France they've had anime and manga for much longer. They've had cosplay in the way that we recognise it today for much longer. They've had competitions for much longer. America the same. Like, they do things in a slightly different way, but
it's a cultural
huge.
thing in America.
Like,
I think. Like in America, my experience of Americans is they're very good at doing one thing. They pick something and they do it well. All or nothing. It's a very American thing, and you often find that you'll get American cosplayers that will put everything into making this one costume fantastic, and they learn skills and they'll spend a long time on one thing, and there are many talented Americans, and you'll see it all the time.
Yeah, I think there's obviously it's a huge country, and obviously you take loads and loads of people who all have different talents from all over the place, and actually when you have one convention, you're focusing like way more people than there are in the UK, so you do see the best of them. But as Lex said, I think that perhaps, especially 5 years ago in the UK, there was a sentiment of it was more important to make as many costumes as you could and have a new costume for every event, and always have something new. Whereas in other countries, especially if you want to succeed as a competitive cosplayer, if you want to make something really, really outstanding, you can't keep that up. I mean, you see really, really talented people like Yaya and Nikita and Laura who make insanely really, really cool costumes, and they seem to throw out a lot of them in a short period of time. But for most people, you can't. Like, it's not feasible. You don't have the time. You don't have the resources, and you're more likely to be able to make one of those costumes once every 6 months or once every 12 months. And it's getting used to that mentality. And I think in the UK, we're only just getting used to that idea that it's cool. Like, it's fine if you want to spend 6 months making a costume. No one's going to judge you for wearing the same costume to like 4 or 5 cons. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, it works for me. I'm always Connor from Assassin's Creed 3. Nobody
I think people feel like that they have to have a new costume every time, but you don't. Like, not at all. If you want to spend longer working on something and then it be cool, then people are just going to be happy to see it.
Yeah,
I think I probably average 1 costume a year now. I'm just too busy with work and life and everything. And I mean, Satine, the costume for ECG, that was a year of my life and a broken back and everything to go with it, you know. Like, if you do one of these international competitions, it's a good 6 months to prepare for a qualifier, and then depending upon when the final is, it can be anything from 6 months to a year and a half of your life, just on one.
Okay,
awesome.
That's well covered, and I think we okay, and we're rolling. And now let's talk about the London Super Comic Con Championship. This is a question that I want to ask, and a lot of people were asking myself. It was like, how is the championship able to secure such a good prize, and what is the return on investment for the sponsors? Given, well, I wouldn't say LSCC is like a small event, but it's relatively small. You know, when you think about, there's only the crowd there, and the actual masquerade itself isn't live streamed, unlike, let's say, the MCM one. So, because if it was live streamed, I would kind of understand the sponsors. You know, like that's what happens at WCS. That's it's live streamed over Niku Dogu, which is their Japanese YouTube. So, Ben, explain, because the production values for LFCC were like, they were off the charts. Multiple camera setups, mood lighting. So, how is this possible?
Most of it's down to investment by the convention itself. The convention is run by some guys who just really like comics. So they initially set it up. They were like, we really like comics. We go to comic shows anyway. We want to make a convention in the UK that has all the big American comic publishers coming over here and having comic stars coming over to the UK, which you wouldn't usually see all in one place. And then they obviously recognized that cosplay was really, really big in the US at all of the kind of mainstream comic shows like San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con and things like that. And they wanted to have that side in the UK as well. And it was actually the press guy who kind of said, well, maybe we could have some kind of competition and have a big prize and see what happens. And it was just before, it was a few months before their first show that I ended up getting involved, just asking if they wanted any help, and they did. So I got more and more involved, and kind of shaped the competition a little bit more from my experience of being a contestant and being involved in cosplay, and we kind of met in the middle. But a lot of it is their investment. Like last year, the stage was a bit smaller. We didn't have the same kind of lighting and things, and when they said to me, well, if you're going to be in it next year, and I said, yeah, happy to help 2015, and they said, well, what do you want to improve? I said, well, actually, everyone said that the price is fantastic, so if you're willing to put that back in, if you're willing to pay for that, then that'd be great. And they're willing to maintain that investment, and they were also willing to increase the stage, add some lighting, try and improve it, because like you said, what's the return on the investment? And so well, it's hard to say. I mean, there was never any promise that running a competition gets more people in the door, but I don't think that that's what they're after. It's not necessarily about the end game of trying to make as much money and wring as much money out of everyone as possible. And they invited a lot of cosplayers from around the world and around Europe to the event, and they covered the hotel and accommodation and flights for the big stars, but even for kind of people who'd come from closer to home, they got guest passes, and they gave them free table space so that they could kind of like sell their prints or talk to fans and things. And they were really, really accommodating with that stuff. And I think that's why I was willing to get involved. I mean, I just do volunteer for them, and it takes a lot of time, but I was willing to get involved with them more than other people because they're willing to invest, and there's no end game. There's no, we're going to put a roadblock here because we want to get something out of this. And they really, really push it, and they're really happy and enthused, and they like seeing that. When the competition goes well, there's never been a question afterwards of oh, we need to get more out of this. We need to make more money or get more people in or something like that. It's the first question is always, did people enjoy it? Did people have a good time? What's the feedback? What are cosplayers saying? Is there something else that they want from the show? And I think that's how a good convention grows. I mean, the first hotel conventions were run by fans for fans, and they grew because fans who were there said, oh, actually, we'd like this next year, or we'd like to see this, or we'd like to make this, and they got involved themselves and they put that back in. And then now you have huge shows like MCM, and somewhere along the way, like, they still do good stuff, but something's gotten lost along the way, and it's kind of, and I think that whilst the show's still manageable, like LSCC are still trying to do that for the fans kind of feeling, and it probably costs them more than the value they get back, but they're willing to do it, so I'm happy to support them in doing that.
Oh, wow, that's a real revelation, because I was, again, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm just a cynical old git because of computer games and all that. Well, I'm an old git. It just seems, I'm thinking, this is costing a lot of money. Surely you've got to get something back from it. But from what you're telling me, no, the organisers just want cosplay. That sounds bloody terrific.
Yeah, it's literally like the flights for Yaya and Bill from America and Kamui and her partner from Europe alone added up to quite a lot. Like you tag on like hotels for everybody and then a trip to America for 2 people for the winners, and then Dragon Con passes, and then hotel for the weekend at Dragon Con. And yeah, I'm sure it adds up very quickly. I don't know what the exact monetary value is there, but it's a lot. And they're just willing to do it, and they're willing to do it in the future as well. And I think that they doing the best that they can. I think as the show grows, they'll probably even willingly invest more into it as well. It's not just like, well, that's it. But I think that's how you grow. I think that's how you get. Obviously, from the first time we did the show, we had a huge amount of fan support, a huge amount of contestants being involved and enjoying it and want to be involved. So I think if you do invest into something and you are passionate about that, then people respond really well to that. And this year as well, we've grown. We had more contestants, we had more feedback, we had everyone talking about it. We had people saying, well, it's the best convention I've ever been to, and that's really great. If people are saying that, then like maybe if you're making a little bit less money, but everyone is saying that it was their favorite convention, is better than making loads of money and everybody saying, oh, that was really bad, I never want to go there again, I was really hot and uncomfortable and I was queuing too much, and all the rest of the things that you hear about some other conventions.
Okay, that's fantastic. But anyway, down to the next one, and I just want to ask, why is manga, anime, or Japanese costumes not allowed?
In LSCC, because it's comics. There's a two-side thing. First, it's a comic convention and a Western comic convention, and that's what they market there. That's what they sell at the stands. That's what the guests they have there. So they try and, at least for the competition that they're investing into, they wanted to keep it a little bit more comics focused, so that people who do love comics can see that. There is some. I'm not going to go into it because it's really kind of complex, but there are some contractual stuff as well. MCM have the rights to use Excel for lots of things, films, manga, anime, games. And the contract that they have with the venue means that other conventions aren't able to do that. So the reason why you don't have loads of conventions at that venue, even though it's huge and quite cool, is just because you can't. There's a contract stopping that. And that same contract means that LSCC as a convention is kind of limited in what it's allowed to do as well. It can't have TV stars that have been on, let's say, Arrow, or they can't advertise certain things, and that limits what we can do, and we can do without getting told off. And we do get told off sometimes for pushing it a little bit far, because me as a person, I'd like it if everybody could cosplay what the hell they wanted to, and that was cool. But when sometimes I allow, let's say let's want to enter a competition and they're cosplaying a certain thing, and then we'll get a nice email saying, "Oh, probably shouldn't be doing that." And so you kind of try and tiptoe around things as best as you can. But unfortunately, there's obviously a lot of money and businesses involved, and competition between rival businesses about conventions and things, and other conventions who are obviously in it to make money. They try and protect their investments and as much as possible. So as I said, it's quite complex behind the scenes. Every convention working hard to try and offer things to their fans, but sometimes you are limited as much as you don't want to be by what you are allowed to do and allowed to offer people, allowed to advertise.
Oh wow, that's a bit of a revelation. You cannot do certain stuff because of because of them. Wow, I had no idea. I really had no idea that. This is super fascinating. Well, like I said, now I know. One last question. How important it is to like get the big names such as Kamui, Yaya Hunt to judge the contests?
Oh, how important is it? I think that it's valuable. I don't want to say it's important, but I think it's valuable. People really, really recognize them. They really respect them. It's good reputation for the convention and for the competition. When you have Yaya's name attached to anything, then suddenly it becomes a sensation. And when she came to the convention and she judged the competition, and a lot of people were just like, oh, I just want to enter just so I can meet her, and that was really cool. But also afterwards, she came away from the convention and posted a video saying, actually, this is one of the best conventions I've ever been to, and probably the best competition I've ever had the chance to judge. And so that was great. And valuable. I don't want to say it's important. I think that you can have, provided that your judges in a competition have experience in costume making and performing, or whatever it is that's happening, whatever the contestants are doing, provided they have experience in that, I think that's all that's important. But I think it's really, really valuable when you have people who have a lot of that experience, who are really, really famous for that experience, for those talents. Like Yaya isn't just famous because she's made a few great costumes, or just because she's like really beautiful, or any of those things. She's entered loads of competitions. She's been on TV shows. She's judged all around the world. She's makes a million costumes, and that combination together obviously gets her a lot of respect. And it's really, really valuable to have in a competition to have a judge like that, to have a judge like Kamui, who's kind of made Warbler famous. And
she's definitely the spokesperson. Isn't it actually a German invention or something like that, or brand?
Yeah, I think someone over there kind of put it together, and so that's kind of what she's famous for. But at the same time, she's obviously just incredibly talented in costume making generally. And having someone like that as a judge or involved in a competition is really valuable, not just because what they say to the contestants, but what they say to me as an organizer, or to LSCC as an event. They give their input, they give their feelings on how things should run, or how they'd like to see things change in the future. And that helps you then plan for the future. That helps you to develop as a competition.
Ah, sweet. Okay, that's a definitely good response. And this is a question I asked. It's not really a question, but rather, how would you? My mate Connor Dapno asked it. It's not a question, but would you be able to tell people tips on not getting discouraged by competitive cosplayers?
Lex, do you want to jump in on this one?
Not getting discouraged. Why would you be discouraged? I guess you know what it is. I think this is something I've noticed. Despite cosplay being immensely popular and pretty much mainstream, it is. You could definitely argue it is incredibly mainstream. The actual number of people that are like entering these high level competitions, not really that high, is it? And I mean, it might just be because of the cost and all that, but I think I'll definitely say in my case, the reason why I would never enter the main championship is I don't think I've got a chance to win. No, don't take it that. You should definitely have a go. Anyone should have a go at these competitions because, so if you hear someone you know is good at competition entering, you just have a go anyway. For starters, you don't know if they're going to get their costume finished.
They might not even turn up on the day. You don't know what they're going to do on stage, and you don't know how the judges are going to react to it. There are so many unknowns in competitive cosplay that it is just not worth worrying over who else is going to enter at all. What you need to focus on instead is having fun and trying to think of a great idea and doing the best you can during the day. So, I think a lot of people spend too much time worrying what other people are going to enter and how they're going to try and one-up that, than trying to focus on making their costume better and thinking how they're going to be on stage and what they can give to the audience. And I think if people just stopped and calmed down and had a go, then maybe they wouldn't be so worried.
Yeah, because again, I really do hate to admit it, but again, it's because of my background. Because I came from competitive fighting games, and the mentality was, you must win. If you're not in it to win, don't bother entering.
I think cosplay is a community, and that's the first thing that I always remember is the fact we are a community. We are cosplaying because we are all big geeks who like dressing up as characters from things that we like or we're fans of, because we want to meet other people who are geeks too. And whilst this is a competition about making costumes that are similar to the original source or doing a performance that's quite impressive to people, you're still doing it to, even if your judge is someone who's world famous for it, you're still doing it to another geek who likes dressing up as things that they're a fan of. Like, there's no point in which this is ever really serious. Like, you can get to the point when you get emotional about it, or you're stressed by it, or you're tired by it, and actually you start taking it quite seriously. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, there's no point when it's actually ever that serious. And as we said before, like, the atmosphere backstage, everyone's quite supportive, they're quite nice. I think that there are a few reasons why everyone should enter. The first is the experience, not just meeting people, but getting up on stage and doing something different, kind of being involved in a little different part of cosplay and a different part of the fandom than you got to be involved in before. Like, everyone tries different aspects of cosplay, like they try different types of shoots, or they go to different events, but not so many people get up on stage. And it's like, well, I don't see why not. Like, if you do a masquerade, walk on stage, walk up, just do a pose, see how you feel about it. If you suddenly decide, actually, I'd like to do something different, I'd like to do a dance, or I'd like to wave my sword around, then that's your next step. And from then, actually, doing it gives you experience. Like, as many times I could watch every video, and I do advise people who want to do competitive cosplay to watch other people doing it, to watch World Cosplay Summit, to watch ECG, and kind of learn from other people. But also, no matter how much you learn from other people, you learn more from being on a stage. Like, you learn more from 60 seconds doing it yourself than you do from, like, 5 hours of watching other people. And from like the first things that I did, from the mistakes I made, I then thought, okay, I'm probably going to do something different next time. Like, that was a big mistake, and this was a big mistake, and like, you come off stage and you think, oh, that went so bad. Like, how could I embarrass myself like that? And then everyone else is like, you know what? No, it was absolutely fine. You think it's worse than it is because your expectations of yourself, but it seemed fine. And then you think, well, next time I'm going to try something different. I'm going to do something else, because actually, as I said, it's not that serious. No one's going to judge you terribly. No one's going to think that you're anything bad of you because things didn't go quite how you planned them to, or how you wanted them to, or you weren't. No one's expecting you to be like celebrity stunt double level acrobatics, or to be a X Factor winning singer. Like, those aren't the kind of, like, that's not the expectations people have of you, and you shouldn't put it on yourself. People shouldn't put it on themselves. It's different. It's a very different kind of experience. It's a very different kind of feeling. But it's community. It's all about community. And it's all about sharing it.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, because Jake. Yeah, again, as you mentioned earlier, you just do it completely just for the fun, just to be on stage. So
yeah, I can always. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I can always remember the first time I went on stage. It was like London MCM Expo. I think it was 2006, like May 2006.
That far back, okay. I want to hear this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did Majin Buu, Kid Buu from Dragon Ball Z.
Okay, I see where this is going. Go on.
And I basically just got two pink two pink shirts from Burton's, and I just made.
Keep going.
And I like made padded muscles and everything, and I made the mask out of like to do the antenna. I did like I hollowed out an eggshell and just stuck that onto a toilet tube. Paper mache it, pink paint, and I ran up on stage. I went and then I just pointed at some random person, and I just ran off and was like and I could like. There used to be a video of it on YouTube, but it's gone now. So I'm guessing the original uploaders like deleted it or something. But you can just see me. I just kind of just like look around, just point, and then I don't even look at the judges because I was like, there were judges on the stage. I just ran up and then ran down.
Well, the first cosplay performance I really did as a performance. This is a pair, and it was an anime of Black Butler, and it was literally it starts in the typical cosplay thing. It's a typical cosplay performance if somebody dies. So within the first 30 seconds, it's like one of the characters is dead, and then it's like, hell, why not? So then that character then comes back as a zombie and kills the other character. So then there's both of us are dead, and it's happened within the first 45 seconds. And it's like it's about as kind of cliche cosplay performances you can get. And it was probably looks terrible, and thank God there are no videos.
I wanted to show it. Okay.
Yeah, we were both dead really quickly. And then before this had happened, obviously we'd given it a bit of a plan, and I was like, do you know what would be really funny? If we both came back as zombies and did the Thriller dance from Michael Jackson. So literally hugely out of character from the costumes, like literally like these two dark kind of foreboding characters that had just had like this really kind of dark interaction. One had killed the other one, and then the other had come back as a zombie and like devoured him, and they both fallen to the floor dead. And then you just had the Thriller music coming in, and we both got up, and then we started doing the Thriller dance. And everyone thought it was hilarious. And obviously we didn't take ourselves seriously, and they didn't take us especially seriously either, but we won from just not trying, from just having a bit of fun, from getting involved.
Apparently, according to WCS rules, if you can stray from the source material, and if you're more entertaining, you actually get more marks for sort of doing an original spin like that. Apparently, that's what I heard.
I don't know. What do you think about that, Alex? Is there? I know you have fidelity, but
things that generally went along with the original source material that tended to do better, from my experience with WCS. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to dig up a few examples. I'll have to go and have a look at the videos.
I think it's about keeping the atmosphere of the series rather than replicating a scene in that series. So. And I think this is something that some people agree with and some people disagree with about performing. Some people think that, let's say you're doing a costume from a comedy show, that having a performance that's kind of light and funny, it doesn't make a difference if it's got nothing to do with the show. But if it's the same kind of feel that you're giving off, then that's good. And that other people think that that's not important, that you should just be able to do whatever you want. If you want to wear a kind of really, really, like you're a vampire killer from a really serious show, and actually you want to get up on stage and dance the Cheeky Girls, then like some people think that you should be able to do that, and that's absolutely fine. And I don't think either of them are wrong. I think different competitions mark you in different ways. Some competitions, like the World Cosplay Summit and London Super Comic Con, say like, well, if you try and keep things in the kind of theme of your original kind of source material, then that's cool. Like we might kind of like value that, but it's still like a really minor mark, like a tiny percentage of the overall marks compared to entertainment value. As you said, like entertainment value is usually a lot higher than anything else in performances. Whereas some things like ECG, they don't care. You can literally, I've seen. We were talking about 5-star stories earlier. I've seen 5-star stories cosplayers who are like robot girls doing Lady Gaga sexy dances, and it's literally like if you need a series, then about as extreme as you get. But they were free to do what they had. They had male mannequins sat on chairs on stage, and they were kind of like practically lap dancing them. They just did what they wanted to do, and that was cool in a different way. Not what I'm sure what I'm saying about myself here.
All right, I'm gonna have to look that up now. But oh darn. Oh,
But going back to first cosplay performances,
yes.
I think the first one that I ever actually did myself, I'd been sort of roped into a few others before, was Jesse and James from Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
And we did a sort kind of dance mime skit to, I think it was one of their themes. And I had 4 Rocket Grunt backing dancers, and I taught them a really simple dance. I ended up doing that performance about 3 different times at different events. And the last event we did it with, they had a charity auction afterwards. And one of the things that ended up in this charity auction was a giant Meowth plushie. And we ended up winning it.
Sweet.
Or was it a Pikachu? No, it was a Pikachu. There was a giant Pikachu.
Team Rocket winning Pikachu, finally.
Yeah.
Finally.
Well, actually, yeah, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh man.
I don't know where that Pikachu is.
Well, you said there was a big Pikachu. Surely that would be sort of
I
hard
think
to
one person got it. I think we were going to have it like where we all got it for like, I don't know, 1/5 of the year each, but whoever got it first ended up keeping it.
It's like a child. It's like, oh, you can have it this weekend, and I want it these weekends and Christmas, and you can have it for New Year's.
Yeah.
And then at some point or another, one of the parents just stopped caring, and then the other one just got complete custody.
oh, custodian battle over Pokemon. Where would it end? But nicely. Now that we're on the subject of judging. Yeah, time to get another viewer question. Well, actually, no. Let's get this one out of the way. Yeah. So I know this is like different rules for all the contests, but what as a judge are you looking for in a costume, and how different are the criteria for each contest, compared to like other countries? Because from what I remembered hearing, I think I remember sitting on one of those panels at WFF that, like let's say in Eastern Europe, the actual costuming is least important because it wasn't expected, and it was like really more upon performance. But let's say for the case of the UK, or let's say in that case for both of you, what would you look for a good costume? What would be an award-winning costume for you?
Do you want to dive in first, and then I'll...
Me or you?
Lex, since Ben's kind of been hogging the mic, but I like.
Ben's just like to talk. The difficult one. It really depends what it is. For me, a really good costume is someone who has 2 things: the right materials, the right techniques, and the right proportions. So if you want to look exactly like a reference material, you've really got to nail the proportions down, and you can be any size but if you get the proportions of that character on the proportions of you and execute it flawlessly, that's a real big thing for me. And then picking the right fabric. So I'm more of a fabric-based cosplayer, so I'm really into my fabric.
Yes,
so...
I'm a cloth. I'm cloth bias as well.
Oh, armor. What's that about?
Yeah.
Definitely picking the right fabric is a big one, and it's not just about the texture of it, it's the weight of it, and then how you treat that fabric to get it to behave the way it should do for that character, and then what techniques you've used to actually execute the cosplay. I think that's a big thing as well. Obviously, you want a variety of different techniques. I mean, you can spend all the time you want on embroidering everything, but if the rest of the costume falls flat, then it doesn't really work. So you need the complete package, you need a variety of techniques, you need them all executed perfectly, you need good proportions. It's a lot of things.
Okay.
So ruthless. Oh my god.
Well, actually,
I think...
Sorry.
Go on.
No, so as a cloth person, you would definitely say you would definitely spot someone that definitely created their own pattern. Let's say a hack who just basically went out and brought a birder pattern and just slightly modified it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, to be honest, I don't create many of my own patterns. I've
really?
always used commercial patterns or patterns and then modified them. I've always done that. Corsets, slight exception. I have made custom patterns for corsets just because they can be so different. But I don't think there's anything wrong with buying patterns because I do it myself all the time.
Okay, so
no, I don't know any judge that have a problem with someone buying patterns.
Oh,
I think
excellent. Okay,
there's a thing about making stuff yourself, but that doesn't mean that they expect you to make everything. Like, they don't expect you to make the fabric by hand. Like, you go and buy fabric. And I think that's the thing, is like you can if you can find a pattern that fits, then great. You're already having to source the materials and make it yourself. Like, don't kill yourself going crazy. And I kind of agree with the whole choosing your fabric is really, really important. Biggest thing, more than anything else. I mean, I split between fabric and armor making, but for me, the number one advice in terms of like making your costume look better is choosing good fabrics, because you can make a costume that is below average, but if it's in fantastic materials, then they don't have to be expensive, but they just have to be like nice, suitable.
So like,
then like if you make a below average costume with suitable materials, you're going to look better than someone who has a really, really cool tailored costume that's well above average. But if they've used terrible materials for it, then all of their work is just going to get lost. And that's the thing. That's the most important. Go on, Max.
One of the things I see a lot is people put so much effort into decorating, embroidering their costumes, and they look fantastic, and the detail they've put in is excellent. But unfortunately, the base costume underneath just does not have enough structure to it, and the whole thing then just falls flat. And it's really hard to go up to that person and say, "You've done fantastic job," but if you just interlined your costume with cotton or something, the whole thing would be so much crisper and more like, if you go and if you look at like the high fashion houses and how their outfits look so crisp and so perfectly made, and it's all about your classic high couture tailoring techniques, and it's something people should look into. It will really make your costume stand out. Like, I'll never make a jacket without interlining or lining it, ever, never now. And years ago I would, but now I can't do it. It has to be lined, it has to be interlined. If it's not those things, then it's the problem is with
I don't know. I think like the technical terms of all like obviously classic fashion and stuff like that. That's how you make clothes, and that's great. I don't think it has to be that complicated though. Like I've seen fantastic costumes. Like quite often the winners of Euro cosplay will not be the people who have the most complicated costumes. They're simple costumes in simple cottons that are just well constructed. Like, they have armor made of paper mache, but if it's done really, really cleanly, and that's the thing, doing things cleanly. And I think if you have nice materials, like nice fabrics, that, like I said, not necessarily expensive, they can just be basic cottons, but if they're just like a nice quality and a nice weight for whatever it is that you're using them for. And yes, things like interfacing can help at times if you need to stiffen something up, but like for the most part, it's just sewing something cleanly, taking your time, finishing the edges nicely. It doesn't necessarily all need to be like lined. I mean, it depends what it is. If it's going to be seen, then you don't want to mess it. I can see your face, Lex. But no, I mean, like that's not necessarily the. I'm not going to necessarily judge someone really heavily. If part of their cosplay isn't lined, if it's neat, then it's neat. I don't. That's
I guess if they finish things properly, then that's the same as lining it.
Yeah, disturbing revelation. I've only just discovered what interfacing was. I was kind of wondering why my assassin coats were kind of a little floppy.
I think one of the other things judges look for is a wide variety of techniques. So if you've got, I think it's often quite hard to demonstrate on just a pure fabric costume, which is why sometimes if I'm making something for a competition, I'll try and pick out a lot of complex techniques like embroidery, corsetry, millinery, which is hat making.
Millinery? Never heard that. Oh, okay.
And all of these things. So if you've got an armor costume, sometimes, or a big prop, sometimes it's easier to demonstrate a wider variety of techniques because you've got the armor making, you've got the giant sword you've made, you've got the under costume and the sewing that goes with the rest of the outfit, and there you've automatically got wide variety of things. And sometimes it can be a little harder to do the same thing on just a pure fabric costume. So a wide variety of techniques, including props and things like that, is always something to go for if you're thinking of competing.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I think how clean a costume is, making sure it's neat in one way or another, lined or otherwise, and
I don't have to line my
variety.
costumes. I might have to remember that. You said so. Okay. Save me a lot.
Variety.
It will save me a lot of time.
But variety of techniques is a big one, really big one. And this is where it comes down to with costumes. Like, how do you compare someone who's made a fursuit to somebody who's made a full suit of armor to somebody who's made a Victorian dress? Like, they are very, very different costumes, and they all have very different skills involved. And the first thing you do is say, like, oh, how accurate is it? How neat is it? Like, is their choice of materials right? Are the colors right? Things like that. And then actually, it's like, well, at what point do I define? Not necessarily, you don't want to say the complexity, because you shouldn't punish somebody if they do a simpler costume over someone who does something overly extravagant. And so you come down to what skills they've shown and techniques they've shown and the variety of things that's involved in that. And as unfortunate for some people as it is, for a person who has that variety, as Lex has said, who's got like a fabric in an under costume, they've got pieces of armor, they might have other bits, they might have cool lights or like other bits and pieces, and little bits, and they might only have a little bit of each, and each one of them might have not been a huge amount of effort. And that person who did armor, that armor might have been absolute hell to make. It might have been really, really tough, and some of the shapes on the armor might have been really tough. But really, all they've displayed is the one thing that they can make armor. And I think, like, if you're comparing those two, then as a judge, you have to kind of lean towards the person who's displayed more, that they've done more. They said, oh, I can do that bit of armor, but I can also do all of these things as well, and look, they're all in my costume. And it's not a great proportion of the marks, but it always comes in. It doesn't make a difference what competition it is. It will always come in. And I think that, therefore, and there are ways in which you can tie those things into your costume. As Lex has said, even if you're doing an all-fabric costume, you can find ways of tying things in. But if you're going into a competition, sometimes look at costumes. And if you've got 3 costumes that you want to make, and one of them has more variety in it, then that might be the one to pick for this competition, because you're going to stand better chances. You're going to get more recognition.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, you've got to do something you love.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yes,
know people that have picked an elaborate design that they didn't really necessarily love that much, or didn't connect with the character, because they were entering a competition and they wanted a good chance of winning. There is no way that you're going to have the love to invest in something like a big, hard-working costume if you don't connect with the character or with the design. And no way. If I didn't even like Satine's costume so much, or the character, there's no way in hell I would have finished that costume, because it was hell to make. Absolute hell.
And it's not just your love of them, it's other people's love of them as well. Like, I love Loki's design. I loved his costume when I started.
Oh yes, Loki, very popular.
But by month 3 of making that, of putting like 3 hours in an evening after work, 7 hours every day of the weekends, like after 3 months of that, you start to hate it. You genuinely start to hate that costume.
Yeah,
but when
I've
you
got
have
that
other
phase.
people who are like, oh, that costume's beautiful, that costume's amazing, I can't wait to see it, that encouragement obviously plays in as well. So, like, it all comes together. Definitely don't do anything that that you don't love, because even if you love it really hard, even if you love it so much, there's going to come a time when you almost hate it. You're just like, God, I just want it to be over. I want it to be done. I don't even want to wear this thing. Like, just be over.
Yeah. I got to the point where I had to unpick all of my costume and start again.
Yeah.
And it was...
For me, it's different body parts of the costumes. Like I hated Zoidberg's feet.
Okay.
I hated.
Go on.
I hated Joker's gloves. I hate gussets. It's just like, oh my god! Like,
yeah. I have a personal rule. I never make gloves anymore. I buy them.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of money on gloves just because I do not want that pain ever again.
Oh, okay. Now that ties us nicely into one of our last viewer questions, and since we got proper legit judges, and yes, Mr. Donald Manning asked questions where cosplayers say the costume was made by them. Where do you draw the line between parts of the outfit brought and parts made?
I think that competitions have a defining line of how much that you can have made by others, whether it's bought or otherwise. I think it's, for most competitions, you have to have made at least 75% of that costume yourself.
Yeah, it's a pretty
That kind of
universal
accounts.
rule.
Yeah, it kind of accounts for the fact that you've bought shoes most of the time, the fact that you've got a
Yes.
wig, but small accessories as well are usually acceptable, like kind of gloves and socks kind of thing, underwear. But like there's one of those things that provided that the majority of it's done by you, that's usually
Okay.
cool. The difference is, of course, like if you're wearing gloves that you've bought, I'm not going to give you any points for that. Whereas
Off?
if you're wearing gloves that you've made, then I'm going to be thinking that's really cool. I'm going to give that person extra points. It might not make a difference, but let's say there's you and there's someone else, and you're both wearing really similar costumes, and one of you's made your gloves and one of you's bought your gloves. Then that's going to reflect better on one of you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to win. I mean, Lex has won ECG solo, and so she represents like someone who, like, it was the one thing that she just bought. She didn't do herself, and that shows that there's a point where making a decision to save yourself stress and save yourself time, and then investing that time into improving a different part of your costume or making something else is more worthwhile. Like, it's not always worthwhile to kill yourself to make every single detail yourself if you can kind of focus that better elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen things where like people have made a beautiful set of armor and they've simply lost out because they bought that undersuit.
Really? Oh my.
Yeah, like, so there'll be another costume where everything was made, or another set of armor where they also made the undersuit and the under, like, things like that. Sometimes, you know, it's really up to personal choice. Like the whole glove thing, I knew that if I attempted to make these leather gloves, it would either be a complete disaster or I'd spend so much in leather trying to make it perfect that it just wasn't worth it, and I'd rather spend the time on the hat and on the corset and on the beading. And that was my decision, and I knew that, you know, it could cost me, and I took that risk. And it's completely up to you. If you're not good, if you're brilliant at making armor and you're not good at sewing, then by all means buy an undersuit. You know, put your time into something that you think will give you more chance. But it is hard. But the 75% rule is definitely a good one to go on. I've seen that quoted in a fair few competitions now, and it's kind of almost become, I don't know where it first cropped up. I imagine one competition decided it, and then it was kind of adopted by all of the others. It's a good one.
Okay, no, because yeah, in all honesty, I can't imagine many people being able to make their own shoes. Although that is one field I definitely want to look into. But
No, never done that myself.
But you see some cosplayers make their own shoes and they make their own wigs and they do everything, and that's great, but like, that's not necessarily the thing that everybody has to do, and that's definitely not
okay.
the thing that's going to make you win by any stretch.
I mean, I remember having a discussion with someone who was trying to decide whether to spend the money buying the fabric for their costume, like a really expensive brocade, or, you know, doing it cheaper and custom printing it. And she was like, well, I'm entering a competition. Would I gain anything from making my own fabric? And I was like, I'm not sure it would be worth the effort. I mean, you probably would gain a little bit extra from the judges by saying, oh, I printed my own fabric. But then I said to her, you wouldn't get marked down from sourcing and buying the perfect fabric. And that the time would probably be best spent making that costume more well structured and better and look neater than it would be to spend your time printing the fabric by hand. So it really is, there's a lot of difficult decisions when you're planning a costume. There's never one answer. It's probably the best way to put it.
Just going back to earlier, my thing about the thing about the patterns. Would theoretically somebody that did, and they proved, you know, with the notes, they created their patterns from scratch, would they get a nominal extra mark as opposed to me who just went out and brought one? Or that would be negligible.
Really depended on how their costume looked. If they were like, I made my own pattern, and then you're like, well, it really doesn't fit.
Okay, that's right.
When you could have gone out and bought a commercial pattern and gotten the fit much better. I think it would really, really depend. I certainly wouldn't mark you down for using a commercial pattern, because hardly ever have I went out and bought a commercial pattern and been like, that is exactly what my costume looks like. Never happens. You've always had to alter it in some way. Always. So there's still a bit of work involved, you know.
Okay. Well, pro tip for anyone making the new Jacob from Assassin's Creed: the back, this Victorian pattern is that the back of it is exactly identical to the coat. All you have to do is lengthen it and put a little yoke on the shoulder pattern. Sorted. And hopefully, I'll be able to finish this new Assassin before MCM next week. Yeah, I'm mad.
Oh, I think that actually there are some, and I hear this from a lot of big cosplayers, there are some patterns that almost every cosplayer has. There is a simplicity pattern, which is a Neo coat from the Matrix. And that coat pattern, everybody who's ever made a long coat for cosplay has based it in some form on that pattern. I've had conversations with Yaya, I've had conversations with big cosplayers across Europe who've all gotten that pattern because it's the easiest place to start and you know it's going to work. And now I know that some of the big pattern companies like Simplicity and Burda and things, they do Game of Thrones patterns, and they're good patterns.
Yeah.
If they go on.
If I am going to make a Game of Thrones costume, I will go out and buy that pattern. I will not put myself through the hell of making that pattern from scratch. I will go and buy that pattern and I will adapt it to suit my needs. There's just no way that I would just put myself through that extra lot of work. Just to...
Yeah, it's not worth the time cost. And I think that there's times when you're going to have to alter that pattern. I mean, for some of my patterns, I find the easiest thing to do is buy a Primark t-shirt or a Primark shirt that fits relatively well. I draw all the patterns that I need on it. I then cut it up, add some seam allowance, and then I've got a pattern. And that's really ghetto. That is not how a professional tailor would make a pattern. They'd use blocks and they'd use complicated techniques, and that's great. And if someone came to me and we're back to the two cosplayers next to each other, both exactly the same in exactly the same costumes, and one of them had made their whole patterns from scratch, and one of them had bought a pattern. Well, maybe I'd lean towards the one that had made it from scratch, but we're talking about that situation's never going to happen. And you know what? I don't think I've ever been. I think I've been in a position where someone's made patterns for something, and I've been like, "That's really cool," and I've kind of recognised that fact. But it's never been a detriment to the people who bought their patterns, because at the end of the day, what I'm paying attention to is how well have you made it, and what does it look like, and what's the finish on it, and what's the quality of it, and what decisions did you make in terms of the materials that you use, in terms of the techniques that you use, not. Did you draw the pattern by hand, or did you alter a pattern that you bought? That's such a negligible background thought, I suppose. That I don't think that's ever made a difference for me as a judge in a competition, and I'd be surprised if there was many situations where it has.
Okay, that's definitely reassuring, because I don't know.
Buy your pattern. It's not a bad.
Oh, good. All right, that's excellent, because I just see all these youngins say, "Oh yeah, I did this pattern from scratch. I went on Adobe Illustrator and I printed it out nice," and thinking, I can't do that.
It's cool if they can. I mean, but more so they can share that with other people. I mean, if you make a pattern on the computer and you can print that out, then great, share that with other people.
Don't sell them.
But I mean, if they've invested money, invested time and effort, and they want to sell them, great. But at the end of the day, that's cool as the fact that that's something that you can then share with the rest of the community. Not, and I find it really cool that there are cosplayers who've made their own patterns, and even if they sell them, that's still really cool. There's then more patterns available for people to buy and people to use. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're way better than someone else who uses them. We all have different skills.
Okay, well, that nicely covers that area of judging, and there are 2 more points, because we're slightly running over time, unless I'm keeping you from something. But again, this is really golden. This is a really golden content, and definitely a mine for people. So people definitely entering competitions, keep your ears peeled. But this is something I'm really curious about. Fidelity at one of the WCSs, one of the categories of judging was how much the character you resembled. So what is your opinion of this, that a cosplayer should resemble a character as much as possible, in terms of looks, physical build, and even race? Because I remember there was this competition held by BioWare recently about Morrigans, and the person that won it did not necessarily have the best costume, but she resembled Morrigan a lot more because she was she was younger, had a similar build as opposed to somebody that had a very superbly accurate costume, but didn't really resemble her as much. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, that's stupid.
Yes.
It shouldn't matter. Much like what Ben was saying earlier, we're all in this, like, we're all enjoying it and stuff. Like, if it's like some sort of like big official thing, I don't know why they would have a rule like that. But again, it's just one of those things. It's just not nice.
Fidelity in WCS is not a costume rule. It's a performance rule.
It's not a look-alike thing at all.
So it's not about looking like that costume.
Okay.
So it's doing a performance like that costume. Now, answering your question about looking like, I mean, there are events, I'm sure, like that are run by companies where they want a specific image. They're going to sell that image. They're going to put that image on the internet. So, as much as you might hate it, they're going to look for the prettiest, youngest person there, and that's something I wholly disagree with. I don't think that's the route that, but that's not a cosplay competition as we know it. But that's just like a one-off event. Now, for cosplay competitions, I think Lex touched on it earlier, and I'm going to agree. It's not about what you like; it's about the proportions of your costume. So, I cosplayed Elrond from Lord of the Rings, and I'm slim like an elf, and I like kind of did the elf ears and everything like that. And it's one of those like I should be good. I like physically look like the character, so that shouldn't be an issue. But actually, the judges called me up in it, and they were like, "Well, actually, you know what? Like, the shape of the armor should be more curved. It should be a little bit more womanly than that and stuff." And like, I got called up, not on because my first thought was actually the wrong thing. My first thought was, you know what? I've got the right figure for this character. And I didn't even think about the costume, and that was a mistake, and that was something that I've always kept in my mind. Of actually, you know what, it doesn't make a difference what figure you have, or what ethnicity you are, or anything like that. What it's about is kind of working with that costume to make that costume suit you, and working with the looks. And I mean, you can't help the fact that if you're in a competition and you and someone else are both doing the same costume, and again, you both make that costume to an amazing quality, and actually one of you looks identical to the character and one of you looks nothing like the character. Like, it always helps if you cosplay things that you look like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do things that you don't like just because you look like them. If you really, really love something, then go with that. But you then have to adapt that. You then have to work with that costume, because you need to find other ways of making that suit you, of it looking like that costume should do, even if that's not your natural physique or your natural look.
I mean, I know plenty of cosplayers of all shapes and sizes that always look fantastic because they know how to dress themselves and shape the costume to themselves. And I know plenty of people who've got model figures and don't do the same thing. So it is about working with what you've got. You know, this is what you got given. Work with it.
Okay, excellent. I think that covers it nicely. And they had $1,000 compared to a poor sod who only had half as much, but yet he saved throughout the half a year. I don't know. Perhaps that would be a good argument to bring in rules, because in elections you can't use your own personal money. You have to be, oddly enough, funded, and you have to campaign.
I think again, cosplay isn't that serious. If cosplay ever got so serious that it was like the elections, then maybe we need rules for it. But again, not going to take it that seriously.
Okay. But anyway,
at the end of the day, you're dressing up like a fictional character.
Yeah.
But anyway, that wraps up nicely this show, and I hope everyone has learned something valuable, because I know I have. Again, revelations such as, wow, the UK wasn't respected for being competitive. LSCC is licensed not to do certain stuff. Okay, again, this is big revelation stuff. But anyway, I thank you very much to my guests. Thank you very much, Jake.
That's right, man. Always.
And thank you very much, Ben. And yeah, before we go, where can we find you then? You have social media? You have a Facebook page, Twitter?
Yeah,
anything?
I'm Enja Cosplay on Facebook and Enja Hunt on Twitter. And yeah, I mean, people are most welcome to just add me as a friend as well. I'm always quite chatty and friendly about any questions you have to do with cosplay or otherwise.
Okay, no, I do have to be a big thanks, because after I won the Open Masquerade last year, which kind of shocked the hell out of me, because again, I don't do competitive cosplay, because again, I've got a big hang up on losing. It was like, I was surprised that, you just bailed me up and said, oh, we were really impressed because you had a sheer array of weapons, and that was really helpful, because I had no idea why I won, because it was like, I saw people with armor and stuff, and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to win, but what? Really? Me? Really? So the fact that you personally emailed me afterward, that meant a lot. So yeah.
Oh, anytime. It's very cool.
Okay, cool. So Lex, do you have any social media? You got a nice page, Twitter?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, like pretty much everyone else. Yeah, my page is just called Cosplex. It's cosplay and Lex smashed together.
Sweet. Well, anyway, then that wraps up. So,
I have two things that I'd like to plug.
Go ahead, Jake.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right. Okay, so an amazing filmmaker by the name of Cicely. She has
that documentary you just done. Yes. Plug it.
She has made a documentary called In Times of Cosplay. It is an amazing piece that she
I just watched it.
Has edited together, and you may find myself and Dave in there talking about our experiences with cosplay and everything, the times, the trials, everything you would want to know. Check it out. It is on YouTube, so if you search Times of Cosplay, I will Danny, you will be providing a link, of course.
Yes, I'll put it. I'll definitely put it annotation. It'll be right in the middle of the screen, so they can't miss it.
Okay, excellent. And also, bit of me, because I want to do a bit of an ego thing here.
We are cosplayers. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. In October, I'm actually going to be performing in a theatre at the Whitstable Playhouse. I am being Uncle Fester in their production
Nice.
of The Addams Family.
Oh, fantastic.
So if anyone's watching this and they live around the Kent area, it's at the Whitstable Playhouse, 20th of October to the 24th. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so much fun. So if you can go, please go. It's just before Halloween, so it's good, spooky, ooky fun. Get it.
Get someone to record it.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Okay. But anyway, thanks guys, and that's a wrap.